About 70 years ago, I was in high school. That was nearly a third of the time this country has existed. When I think back to those days, I can be very honest about what occupied my mind. I really had only two interests: girls and cars. I wasn't very successful with the girls, so let's talk about cars instead. Imagine that when this conversation ends, I make you an extraordinary offer. I tell each of you that you may choose any car you want. Pick the model, the color, the features, anything. It will be delivered to your home tomorrow with a big ribbon on top. It sounds wonderful, right? But then I add one condition. This is the only car you will ever own in your entire lifetime. Now everything changes. Knowing that this is the only car you will ever have, how would you treat it? You would read the manual carefully. You would change the oil on time. You would avoid potholes. You would park it in safe places. You would protect it from weather and wear. You would take care of it with extraordinary attention because you would know there is no replacement coming. The point is simple. You are not going to get just one car in life, but you are going to get exactly one body and one mind. That's all, and they have to last you your entire lifetime. If you treat them carelessly, if you ignore your health, your habits, your education, there is no spare body or backup mind waiting for you. So the same care you would give that once-in-a-lifetime car, you should give to yourself. When I was young, I didn't fully understand that lesson. But over time, I realized that long-term thinking is everything. Whether you are talking about your health, your relationships, or your finances, the principle is the same. Think in decades, not days. In investing, this long-term mindset is essential. People often believe they must have opinions about everything. They feel pressure to comment on every stock, every trend, every new technology. But that is a mistake. The key is not to know everything. The key is to know what you understand, and, equally important, what you do not understand. You do not need to be right about thousands of companies. You only need to be right about a few. I remember meeting Bill Gates on July 5th, 1991, when I arrived in Seattle. Bill immediately told me I needed a computer. I asked him why. He said I could use it to do my taxes. I told him I didn't have any taxable income because my company didn't pay dividends. He said I could track my portfolio. I told him I only owned one stock. Bill insisted computers would change everything. I asked him, will it change whether people chew gum? He said, probably not. I asked, will it change what kind of gum they chew? He said, maybe. I replied, then I'll stick to chewing gum and you stick to computers. The lesson was not that computers weren't important, they clearly were. The lesson was that I didn't have to understand everything. There are thousands of businesses in the world. I don't understand most of them, but I only need to understand a few very well. That idea reminds me of a baseball analogy from Ted Williams, one of the greatest hitters who ever lived. In his book, The Science of Hitting, he described dividing the strike zone into 77 small squares, each about the size of a baseball. He knew that if he only swung at pitches in his sweet spot, his batting average would be around 400. But if he swung at lower, outside pitches, even if they were technically strikes, his average would fall to 230. His insight was simple. The most important thing in hitting is waiting for the right pitch. In baseball, however, the batter has a disadvantage. If the count goes to two strikes, he must swing, even at a pitch he doesn't like. In investing, there are no called strikes. People can throw stock ideas at you all day long. Technology companies, automobile companies, startups, but you don't have to swing. You can stand there patiently. No umpire will call you out for watching a pitch go by. You only get a strike in investing if you swing and miss, if you invest in something you don't understand or misjudge. That makes investing an extraordinarily advantageous game for the patient and disciplined. You can wait for years for the right opportunity. I often tell students that if they were given a punch card with only 20 punches representing the total number of investments they could make in their lifetime, they would become very rich. Why? Because they would think deeply before using each punch. They would not waste decisions. And the truth is, you don't need 20 great decisions to become wealthy. 4 or 5 truly outstanding decisions, made over decades, can be enough. Consider companies like Amazon. What Jeff Bezos accomplished is extraordinary. I admire him immensely. But could I have predicted in advance that his company would succeed while many others failed? Probably not. And that's okay. I don't have to predict every winner. On the other hand, some businesses are easier for me to understand. Take Coca-Cola. The company has existed since 1886. Every day, roughly 1.8 billion servings of its products are consumed worldwide. If you could increase the profit on each serving by just 1 penny, that would add millions of dollars per day, billions per year. That's the kind of durable, understandable business I prefer. You may have expertise in entirely different fields: artificial intelligence, renewable energy, biotechnology. That's fine. Your circle of competence may be different from mine. The important thing is to know where the boundaries are. Stay inside your circle. Expand it gradually through reading and experience, but don't pretend to understand what you don't. Curiosity plays a central role in all of this. When Bill and I first met, we were scheduled to spend an hour together. We ended up talking for about 10 hours. We were endlessly curious about business, technology, economics, the world. That curiosity created a friendship. Curiosity also creates progress. Bill once said that when something doesn't turn out as you expect, you should ask yourself, what is wrong with my model of the world? That question is powerful. It forces you to learn, to read, to talk to people who know more than you do. This is an extraordinary time to be alive if you are curious. The amount of information available today, through books, courses, lectures, and research, is astonishing. When I was young, I spent hours in libraries. Now, knowledge is accessible instantly. But the key is not access, it is discipline. You must choose to read, to think, to reflect. I read for 5 or 6 hours a day. Biographies are among my favorites. When you read about remarkable individuals, their struggles, failures, and triumphs, you gain perspective. You see that success is rarely smooth. You learn resilience. Optimism is another shared trait between Bill and me. If you look at the long arc of history, particularly in America, the progress is staggering. When I was born, the standard of living was a fraction of what it is today. Real output per person has multiplied many times over. Women and minorities have opportunities that were unimaginable decades ago. Technology has transformed medicine, communication, and transportation. That doesn't mean there are no problems. There are always problems. But the overall trend has been forward. Consider public health. Vaccines, for example, have saved millions of lives. Efforts to eradicate diseases like polio have brought cases down from hundreds of thousands per year to just a handful in certain regions. That kind of progress doesn't happen by accident. It happens because people remain committed to science, cooperation, and long-term goals. Similarly, concerns about automation and job displacement often dominate discussions. Technological progress has always disrupted jobs. In 1800, most Americans worked in agriculture. Today, only a tiny percentage do, thanks to machinery and innovation. But society didn't collapse. Instead, new industries and opportunities emerged. Greater productivity is not the enemy. The challenge lies in distribution and transition, ensuring that people who are displaced have access to education, retraining, and support. The problem of abundance is very different from the problem of scarcity. If technology allows us to produce more with less effort, that should ultimately be a benefit. Education itself is critical. In many economically disadvantaged areas, public education struggles. Yet there are bright spots, schools that achieve extraordinary outcomes with limited resources. The key often lies in leadership, culture, accountability, and high expectations. Reform is difficult because institutions resist change, but improvement is possible. When students ask about fear of failure, I offer simple advice. Don't let it paralyze you. I was once terrified of public speaking. It limited me. Eventually, I forced myself to take a course and confront that fear. It changed my life. Many of the apparent setbacks in my life, such as being rejected from certain opportunities, turned out to be blessings. Failure is not fatal. In many cases, it is instructional. What matters is that you keep moving forward. When choosing a career, I encourage people to seek work they would do even if they didn't need the money. Don't sleepwalk through life. Don't postpone happiness. If you find something you love, something that engages your curiosity and strengths, you will tap dance to work. If I were starting today, I would likely still choose investing because it suits my temperament. Bill might choose computer science again, especially with the advances in artificial intelligence. Others might choose energy innovation or biology. The specific field matters less than the alignment between your abilities, your curiosity, and your values. In the end, the themes are consistent. Take care of your one body and one mind. Think long-term. Stay within your circle of competence. Be patient. Read constantly. Remain curious. Don't fear failure. Be optimistic about the future, but realistic about challenges. Life, like investing, rewards those who wait for the right pitch, who swing selectively, and who focus on what they understand best. You don't need to hit every ball, you just need to hit a few out of the park and make sure you're still in the game for the long run.